Welcome back, Galactic Dragon here, everybody, with my latest build for Borderlands 4, BeamAmon, an infinite ordnance damage build that's focused on some overlooked weapons that are tons of fun to use. We are going to be using the Streamer and the Bottled Lightning as our primary weaponry for this build, so let's check it out.
Are you out of your mind? Strike! Sweet streets, no broom, just a boomstick thunder. Borderlands raider, make the weak cleats wonder. Beats the name, street shine under my reign. Clean them out, dirty gas swept down the drain. No sleep on the keeper, wreck and stack beat, heavy bass hits. Make the weak hearts weak, metal clashing. Full guitar screaming in sync. Can't be stopped, won't drop, let that sing. King of beats, ain't lace up brain. Keep it streets clean like a ruthless train. Can't be stopped, won't be dropped. King of beats, this throne's Borderlands 4, I'm the sweeper, no score ties. Shred rips so sharp they cut through the skies. Baseline stops like a map through dirt. Lyrics hit harder than a hammer to heart. Keeper of records, my book's got no smudges. My beats so bright in the shadows, grudges. Clean the filth, call it my crusade. The king of beats, the crown's handmade. King of beats, I reign supreme. Keep the streets clean like a ruthless train. Can't be stopped, won't be dropped. King of beats, this throne's This throne's King of beats, I reign supreme. Keep the streets clean like a ruthless dream. Can't be stopped, won't be dropped. King of beats, this throne's locked. This throne's locked. This throne's
Okay, so now that we've checked that out, let's go over the items and the skills that we're using for this build to get this really, really cool and fun effect. Now, of course, our primary weapon here is going to be the Streamer. We've got the Promised Streamer. It has 10 shots in the clip, which is a little bit more than you can standardly get. A lot of these things only come with 8 in the clip, and this is actually a high damage roll Streamer as well. You see with the 5,247 damage per shot, with the over 10,000 damage DPS. So this is our primary weapon that you saw. It's just obliterating everything with super duper fun to use, and as you can see, very easy to keep the ammo in this thing regenning. So let's start from the top, and we're going to end up coming back to the Streamer and talking a little bit more about this in Bottled Lightning. Up top, we got a Kuka here. This is just there so that we can throw the additional 30% damage with the Vial Launcher, and that's when we're not using the Stray to add an additional 35% damage with the target marker. Now, you can get both of these up, but it's not really needed to do at any point. Just having one of them up does more than enough, but you can get both of them up. It just does take a minute, swap between, well, not a minute, a few seconds to swap between and get both of them up. So you might get like 3 seconds of both amp, and then it'll fall off to just one of them again. So I prefer to just use the one version of amp, but having the 2 different ways to amp damage on the build here, just in case we run into stuff that's harder to kill. And also the Eviscerating Stray, being a Ripper weapon, is fantastic on this build. Does great damage in general, fun for mobbing if you want to be using a gun, or if you've messed up the timing somehow with your heavy ordnance. We've got a Wombo combo here at the bottom. This thing's mainly a get-up gun, but it can be used by the build. It does work perfectly fine, lots of fun to use there. But this thing is mainly for if you're down and the Stray's not doing it for you, just deliver a whole bunch of damage to something really quickly, get yourself back up. Then over here, we've got the Burt's Bees. This was the original focus of the build BeamAmon and beams, but honestly, this thing fell off a little bit on this build. It's still a fun weapon to use. I do still have it there because you can do some mobbing with it, but in all reality, we are focusing very heavily on the ordnance. While this is an okay gun, you're not really going to see me bossing with this thing with this particular build, but it is a nice one in slot number 4. Now down here, we have a mini explosive tonic. This thing mainly we're going for that splash damage and the elemental affinity. The elemental affinity is going to be working with all the cool status damage stuff that we do, and of course the splash damage pumping up our promised streamer. The promised streamer delivering those beams straight forward, delivering constant damage, and with our setup constantly refilling its own ammunition, you can fire this thing infinitely. Over here we've got the explosive cyborg. Now this is only a purple class mod, and you'll see that this again, Dragon's going with a purple class mod. I do this a lot of the time with my builds, friends, because you can get some very cool bonuses out of the purple stuff. So on this one here, we have +5 to our ordnance damage, and then +1 to some other skills I'll show you in the skill tree in a moment. But +20% all damage dealt. We've got our gun damage there. That's pumping up ordnance damage through our specializations. And the fact that this is actually technically a heavy gun ordnance. And of course, ordnance damage there as well. Watts for dinner being pretty much the best in slot shield for most builds, honestly. Adding that 25% shock damage when your shield is full. Ours is adaptive and absorb, a little bit better chance to get a bit more ammo back if we're getting hit. And adaptive as well, giving us a bit more elemental resistance against the things that are harming us currently. Now we have the Vindictive Slugger here. This is our Ripper enhancement. You see we got the gold one, it's got hard charger and high roller on there. So our Ripper parts gain +25% damage, but charge time is increased, so a little bit longer to start firing this thing, but again, increasing the damage, and it feeds back into the stray here as well. And then the second roll there, high roller, guns with Ripper licensed parts increase their gun damage by 2% for each consecutive shot fired for a maximum 25 stacks, again with us firing as many times as we can with the streamer right here. Getting those 25 shots out actually is completely doable, and you can get yourself up to maximum damage stacks there with the high roller. Pretty freaking awesome. So over here for the firmware, we are going with Gadget Ahoy, Get Throwin', and Goo JFC. Now, the reasons for these make a lot of sense when you actually take a look. We got Gadget Ahoy here. Ordnance cooldown duration is reduced by 15%, so extra time taken off to get this thing back when we mess up our timing. And in addition, we get the additional ordnance damage and additional ordnance kills, granting even more damage for when we're mobbing. Works great for both the Bottled Lightning and for the streamer. Now here we're going with 1 in Get Throwin', and that's just for the ordnance damage increase as well, another 10% there. And our action skill cooldown rate on the Goo JFC here, that is because when we use our action skill, we're again reducing the cooldown for our ordnance here in case we've messed up the timing. But in general, you should always have ammunition ready to go for your ordnance. In case something does go wrong, we have a way to get our ordnance back up even faster and get that damage going. So now taking a look over at the skills themselves. In blue, you can see that we've got the 10 out of 5 here in Scorched Kairos, giving ourselves that massive boost to ordnance damage and magazine size. Moving down to here, Tail of the Comet, we're putting 5 points into here for this cryo status application chance, the additional cryo damage. This can basically double the damage that we are currently doing with the streamer. This skill alone is absolutely massive in how much additional damage it can help deal. Do not miss this one. Down here, we've got 2 points in Ancient Ways. That's just increasing the cryo damage that we can do by a little bit. Moving over to Machinist, this is a kill skill. Amon restoring a percentage of his ordnance cooldown every time we get a kill, 21% there. So even if we mess up our timing with the ordnance, you see you kill 1 or 2 enemies and your ordnance should be right back up with this skill. Going down over to the right, you'll see that we have gone for 5 out of 5 in the Blackout passive, so that our ordnance damage can critically hit and additionally apply shock damage with the critical hits as well. So again, stacking up additional damage on top of our ordnance there. More cryo coming from here, more shock coming from there. Great multipliers to be using. Here we've got 3 out of 5 with Tactician, so when hip firing, our guns are gaining increased firing rate, and while aiming, we gain increased gun damage and gun handling. This will, of course, also help with the ordnance. Right here, we've got a Smelter kill skill. We restore a small percentage of our Forge skill every time we get a kill, which is just thrown on there because it's nice to get your Forge skills back faster. That's the big sword that we can pull up through people. And over here, we've got Thunderous Rage, another kill skill. Killing an enemy with shock damage from guns or status effects will grant a stack of shock affinity. We actually do this fairly often, so you see the shock affinity coming up, and that gives us critical hit damage. So increasing our critical hit damage with shock here, and again, this works really well with the bottled lightning. And on top of that, because we have the additional shock damage coming through with all of our ordnance here, the streamer is going to be hitting for shock as well. So we have a really good bonus for critical hit damage here. I wish we could have put more points there, but really the other stuff that we have going on is a little bit more important. Going over to here in the green tree, you'll see we've gone 5 out of 5 with Gathering Storm and 5 out of 5 with Executioner. Now this one here, kill skill, increasing elemental damage, so that just helps out with the bonuses that we've got on our ordnance damage. And then over here, Executioner, gaining the increased critical hit damage, and the effect being doubled if we hit with melee. So always nice to throw a melee hit in there and get the increased double critical hit damage whenever possible. Moving down the tree, you'll see we've taken nothing on that line, but 5 out of 5 here in Herald's Call, increasing the shock damage that we're going to be getting from our passive and while using the bottled lightning. Then going down over here, we're getting increased ordnance damage and detonation radius. Now we don't really have so much detonation on the build anymore, so we don't have to worry about that, but the damage boost here for ordnance is very nice. And then down to Stoked, a very important skill for this. Grenades have a chance to refund themselves on use, but heavy ordnance has the chance to refund 1 ammo on damaging enemies. Now it looks like a low chance, but we only need the 1 point there because each beam from the streamer and each ball from the bottled lightning hits multiple enemies multiple times, and so you'll see that this is coming off all the time, refilling our ammunition. Absolutely no problem for the ordnance weapons. Finally, going over to here, we've got 3 out of 3 in Impetus, and that is just so that we can get a little bit of extra movement speed and shield regeneration, because that's super duper nice to have on the build. Now, the actual skills that we are using for our action skill here, you'll see we're going with Scourge, and with the additional cryo, this is actually pumped up quite nicely. We are getting big cryo waves that come out of the character while we're behind our shield that keeps us nice and safe, and we can also attack with a Forge Wave dealing cryo ordnance damage, and it will pass through enemies, consuming vengeance to increase damage dealt. So the whip attacks with this character are also absolutely fantastic with the buffs to ordnance damage. Now for our augment for this build, we are using Cryonic Thrum. While Scourge is active, Amon taunts enemies, and we are inside of a really cool shield, sending out a Cryonic Pulse every second, dealing cryo ordnance damage, even more ordnance damage there for us, and restoring allies' health within range. Also, while you ADS in this mode, you will deal additional bonus cryo damage with guns, and that works out for our streamer and such as well. Pulse damage doing 535, and the health restoration, same thing. Additional bonus cryo damage of 35% there. Pretty freaking awesome. And then we're capstoning it with Wrathfall so that we can call up a shock ordnance sword from the ground. It always critically hits. It does huge damage. And you will see that this drops a big status effect on enemies too. You can actually clear out like 3-4 enemies in a group with this very easily. Fantastic ability. Now, the 2 other skills that we have coming from our class mod over here on the Explosive Cyborg. That would be this guy here. We gain Overshield when we deal ordnance damage, so we're constantly gaining Overshield. Absolutely fantastic there. And this one right here, another one that is keeping our ammunition absolutely filled right up for ordnance. Whenever Amon applies a status effect to an enemy, there's a chance to partially restore our shield and our ammo. So we're keeping our shield and our ammunition full with this as well. Big shield boost here, big shield boost here, and 2 ways that we're regenerating our ammunition straight back into the clip. This thing's popping off all the time with all the cryo and all of the shock status effects that we are applying. Super duper cool little loop there for the skills. Moving over to our specializations, you will see, of course, we've gone heavy into Gadget here, but to get there, we've gone 10 points into Survivor and 20 points into Brute. The 2 points that I've dropped there are just extras since we've leveled up all the way. So we're going to be putting more points into gun damage there. So coming down here to get Gadgeteer, but coming down Brute to get Riddle You this because you want that additional gun damage. So we've got even more stacks of gun damage, up to 50% additional here as we stack it up. Very easy to get these stacks with our ordnance damage. Then we're going everything in Gadgeteer. We're going Tripwire to reduce our Ordnance cooldown whenever the action skill is activated. 25% reduction there. You'll see your Ordnance come up basically right away when you use Tripwire. Of course, you know, if you've accidentally used it up entirely, it'll take a little bit longer. Most of the time, though, you've accidentally switched away or something's booped you, knocked you down, and so just using your action skill can basically bring your Ordnance back right away. Over here with Full Spectrum Arsenal, Ordnance damage is now benefiting from increases to gun damage, and here we're kind of getting a little bit of a double dip because we were already increasing the gun damage to our Heavy Ordnance gun, and now we've got Full Spectrum Arsenal to go yet again. And then down here at Fragmentation Payload, Ordnance gains the chance to critically hit enemies again, and also gains Ordnance critical hit damage. So our Ordnance is definitely going to be critting now. We've got 2 places where those crits are coming from, and you can see we've got the additional Ordnance critical hit damage here for 50%. So the last thing that I really want to talk about for this build is that it seems to do more damage if you attack from the side or from behind. Now, I noticed this when I was fighting some of our vault bosses, and I started just jumping and gliding to the side while fighting them. The Ordnance on this build is definitely doing more damage if you're attacking from the side or from behind. It's very, very noticeable. So definitely try to circle around the enemies that you're fighting, get those shots in, not just bang head-on. Like, head-on shots are going to do lots of good damage for you anyway, but if you can get yourself around the side or behind an enemy and start delivering those shots, you're going to see a real increase in damage too. It's crazy how much additional it will actually add for you. Like, I couldn't believe it when I saw that. I don't know what the mechanic is behind that. I hadn't seen anything written down anywhere about that yet, so it could very well just be that Ordnance damage right now is doing more damage from the sides and from behind, and I kind of figured that out while we were playing this build. So everyone, thank you for checking this out. We've got BeamAmon! Yeah, he sounds like a Digimon, you know it. Until the next time, friends, thanks for being here. Don't forget to check me out streaming on Twitch like 5 days a week. You can hang out with me live over there. And until the next time, peace out and happy gaming.
Rises fire in the sky. Dragons screaming, who's asking why?